she was doing basically smut. For those who don't know, that is just light porn about her sexual experiences on the Appalachian Trail. My buddy Jukebox at one point was like, I passed her on trail today and I didn't even make eye contact because I didn't want her to write about it. And it was like story time with dinner, reading this smut out loud with one of the people who's like a recurring character in it. And I'm reading it out loud and he walked around the corner and we were like, everybody just melted.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Trail Tales. My name is Kyle O'Grady. I am a huge hiking nerd. That's right. And every single week on this podcast, I chat with other hiking nerds about their experiences on the trail. We're going to have a great episode today. I'm so excited. It's also an early one of the earliest I've ever done. I just barely finished my coffee. So it's going to be good. And if you found yourself watching a bunch of these episodes, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and leave a 5-star review because I'm a podcaster. I have to say that. It's obligatory. If you have a podcast, you got to get those reviews. And with that said, welcome to the show. Allie from the YouTube channel, Appalachian Adventurista. Did I get it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Great.
All right. Yeah, thank you for coming in so early and for doing this, and congratulations on your Appalachian Trail thru hike.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here, waking up in the best way.
Yeah, no, you're still drinking your coffee.
Yes.
I got up extra early this morning. Well, not that early, but early enough to make sure that I could like choke down like a cup and a half before we started, because I'm already gonna be like bad in this episode because it's early, but it's like 9 o'clock. It's not like that early. It's probably some guy that wakes up at like 4 a.m. every day. It's like these. Anyways,
you know who that is? That's the ultra runners.
Yeah, probably.
They're up at 4.
Yeah, they've already finished like a 50K by this point in the day, but
yes,
it's all good. I've got a kind of funny story to start this off. So last year, I think it was in January, or not last year. Actually, by the time this comes out, it'll be last year, January of 2023, something like that. I was in Asheville, where we are now, and I was doing like a little weekend trip with a friend, and he's like the kind of friend where, well, I guess the full story is we used to work together back in Vermont. And so like we kind of had that like coworker relationship, and then we became friends. He ended up leaving the company eventually, and I did a while later. But after he left, he moved to North Carolina. And so we hadn't really seen each other much. And we made this Asheville trip together, and that was like the first time we'd seen each other in a few years. So it's kind of like the type of friend where, you know, it's not like you're talking every day or let alone seeing each other a lot, but like, you know, you still keep in contact, and it was great to see him. And so it's the kind of thing where, you know, we were just kind of catching up, like, especially because we were former coworkers, you know, talking about work and all this and that. And I'm telling him about my YouTube channel and how that's like my full-time job and all this stuff. And, you know, he thought it was cool. But then we're in REI together. And as we're leaving, we're walking out, and you were walking in or something like that. And you recognized me from YouTube, and you stopped me and you're like, hey, you're Kyle Hates Hiking. And I was like, yeah. Which honestly, it doesn't happen very often. On trail, a decent amount, but off trail, very rarely does that happen. And so I was quite flattered, but it was even more epic because he was there. And so it really just made me look like a fucking big shot in front of my friend, especially like a former coworker, you know, software developers. And like now I'm doing this crazy YouTube thing, and to like have someone recognize me in person and be like, oh, I know you from YouTube in front of him was just great. I loved that. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, man, that was wild. Yeah, we kind of had walked in. We like walked in, and you were in the checkout line, I remember. And I completely.
Were you there too?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You didn't look it. Oh God, really?
I
watched you walk around the store.
Seth is saying that. Is that true?
Okay, lightly, not as bad as he's making that sound. So we walked in, and you were in the checkout line, and I knew that I wanted to say hi to you. And so I just like circled the little table that they have at the backpack area to like try stuff on, because I was waiting for you to finish. I didn't want to like approach you in line.
Yeah.
But then it took a while. And so Seth like went off and was shopping. And yeah, so I just like hovered and waited for you to be done. And then, yeah, you did. And I said hi to you, and I was like Seth said, I was horrified because at that time, like I was just small apples. I had like 3 YouTube videos out at that point. I hadn't stepped foot on the trail. And yeah, anyway, I was panicked. And then
You didn't seem panicked. It was totally fine.
I was 100% panicked.
I was flattered.
Seth came downstairs afterwards and he looked at me. He was like, "What just happened?" Because he could just see it on my face. I was like,
It's so no, you were good. You were good.
Yeah.
And like I said, it made me look good in front of my friends. So
yeah, I had a really hard time though not roasting you online because I wanted to be nice because I had just met like one of the people I'd been watching on YouTube for so long, but then at the same time you've got X number of videos about like shopping at REI and I
you
wanted
should have.
to.
You know, I'm not gonna lie, that enters
Yeah.
my mind every time I walk into REI. I'm like, is some employee gonna recognize me here and be like, "You're the guy that like shits on REI"? That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But no, it was. You should have roasted me. Honestly,
Okay.
it would have been funny.
I'll go back in time.
Yeah, you can do it now if you want. That is funny though, and I can't remember if you told me you were through hiking when it was just like a brief encounter, obviously, but
I don't even know what I said. I know I didn't say my name even.
mhm. But then you tagged me in that story that same day, so that's when I like found your Instagram, and that's when I saw that you were going to be through hiking stuff, and I was like, oh cool. So I checked out your channel a little bit, and you crushed it.
Yeah.
You absolutely crushed it. So.
Thanks.
What made you want to thru hike the Appalachian Trail? I mean, that's a big undertaking.
Yeah. It's kind of been one of those like one day things. I grew up in Southern Appalachia here, so it's always been in my backyard and I've always looked at it and I've done pieces of it, particularly around hot springs.
Mhm.
So it was always kind of my local long distance trail. I know that, I mean, kind of now North Carolina has the Mountains to Sea Trail also. So there's options for long distance trails, but at least from when I was growing up, like the Appalachian Trail was it. So it just kind of made sense. I wanted to start with the one that was from my like home mountain range and
Yeah.
the one that I connected with. And my spirituality is also a little bit wrapped up in these mountains. So it made sense for like me to start
Yeah.
there. But yeah, it just kind of was a natural first one. I
Yeah,
wanted
definitely.
to try through hiking. So the Appalachian Trail was it.
So it was something that you had thought about for a while before you started?
Yeah. I mean, I probably said when I was like 5 years old at one point,
Wow.
I'm going to hike the Appalachian
Really?
Trail. And then, yeah,
Damn.
flash
good for you.
forward. And then I think it was 2020 when, the world went down, that I pegged 23 as the year. Because I knew I needed some time to like shuffle things out and I at the time didn't have the funds to do it. And so
Mhm.
I gave myself like a 3-year window and pegged 23 as the year. And then, yeah, prepped for a couple years and then did it.
That's so awesome. Like, longtime listeners of the show, I've talked about this a lot before, which is something I say in every episode at this point. I'm running out of shit to say, everybody. But no, I didn't know about it when I was 5 per se, but I learned about it when I was like pretty young. I was in high school, like midway through high school, and it was the same thing. Like I knew I wanted to do it for a long time before I actually did it, and I think that's kind of interesting because I don't know. I think it just made it. I mean, it's special for anybody. Don't get me wrong, but speaking for myself, and I'd be curious to know if your situation was similar. Like it was extra special for me, I think, especially when I finished, because it was something I had been anticipating and thinking about for so many years, so many freaking years. And a lot of people, that's not the case. They just they learn about it, and the next year they're on trail, or maybe they know about it for a while, but they're not really thinking about doing it, and then all of a sudden they're out there, kind of a last minute decision. I don't know. Do you think it made it? This probably isn't even the best way to say it, but for lack of a better way to say it, do you think it made it more special for you because you had been anticipating it? And I guess you said 5 years old. You kind of said it there. You were thinking about, or you're 5, so, but kind of just like, yeah, thinking about doing it from such a young age. Was it like, maybe not from 5, but from when you were a little bit older, was it always like seriously thinking about it, or just like, I know it exists and it would be cool to do it? Can you just kind of talk about that a little bit? I know that was a lot I just threw at you there, but
Yeah, no, you're
run
good.
with it.
To answer the question, I don't know at what point it went from being like, there's a trail and maybe I'll do it one day, to it like transitioned smoothly from that at some point to like, I'm gonna do it one day. Of like, not like a definite, I didn't have a date or anything like that, but I knew for a really long time I was eventually gonna do it.
Yeah.
And so that's why when we got to 2020, I started thinking about it, and I started thinking about all the time that I now had in the world and like all the things that had fallen apart,
Yeah.
and, graduating college and then not being able to find a job through the pandemic and stuff like that. And so, yeah, it just kind of like, it was like the time to just decide to go do it.
Yeah,
and do
definitely.
it. So yeah, but I mean, also to what you're saying, it shocked me. I was so shocked when I got on trail and found out that people had like learned of the trail last year.
I
And I was like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
Like, I've spent my whole life thinking about this trail and preparing for this. And yeah, you're absolutely right. There was so much buildup for it to the point that like probably that affected a little bit the outcome, or not outcome, but how post trail has gone. Because by the time I actually got to it, like 2020 to 2023 was borderline obsession with the trail in my like preparing for it phase. Like literally all my free time was spent watching YouTubers and thinking about gear. And I have like 7 spreadsheets on my computer of like all the stuff I was getting ready. Huh? Oh my gosh, to a T. Yeah. So yeah, it was a lot of buildup.
Yeah.
And that, it just made all of the emotions and everything like that so much more intense.
I think that's what I was trying to get at with that question there. Cause that's how I felt too, especially at the start and the finish. I mean, let's be honest, it's going to be emotional for anybody, both of those, the start and the finish. But I don't know, speaking from personal experience, that first day, like climbing up Springer Mountain, I was so nervous. And I think a lot of it came back to, I'll just to go through like where my head was at that first day, and maybe even a little bit into the first couple days. I was just like, I've been thinking about this for so long. I've been planning on doing this for so long. I've even made it a part of my identity. At that point, I told pretty much anyone that I was close to that I wanted to do it, like even years before I set foot, on the AT. And so like, then I just found myself on it one day, and I was like, fuck, dude. I was like, is this really what I want to do? And it just kind of tripped me out a little bit. I was so nervous that first day. How did you feel like when you first started?
I was, oh man, gosh. It was so much. I mean, as you know, but I don't, oh gosh, where do I start that one? There were so many things going on in my head. It was a blur and everything was going by so slowly. I can probably remember like most of my steps getting there. Like everything was just so visceral. But at the same time, like I wasn't nervous necessarily about doing it. I'm kind of in the same as you, where like I told everybody, I told the world, I got on YouTube and was like, I need somewhere else to put this. Oh, that's a
whole nother part of it. Oh wow, we'll get into that too. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I had told the internet this whole thing. I had built this channel, Appalachian Adventurista, for this as an outlet for me to talk about it. And so that was just a whole other thing that added into it. And I wasn't nervous about the backpacking. I wasn't nervous about the hiking. I wasn't nervous about like the physical like difficulties of the trail, or really the mental ones, because I felt like at the time I had prepared. Little did I know. But
okay.
But the biggest thing that I was just afraid of was that I wasn't gonna like it. Because like I had done backpacking trips up to a week long, but past that, I didn't know if that was going to be, I didn't know where my threshold was going to be, or like where I was going to hit a wall with it or anything like that. So yeah, my biggest fear was that I just wasn't going to like through hiking, and I had built it up so much and told everybody. And anyway, yeah, that was probably my biggest fear. And thank goodness that wasn't true. But also if it had been, it would have been okay. That would have been a very different phase of events, I guess.
No, definitely. I didn't even think about I didn't have my YouTube channel when I threw like the AT. And so I wasn't vlogging. All I was doing was just posting on Instagram for like my friends and my family and stuff. And even that made me a little nervous, just like knowing, like, I guess it kind of makes sense. Like when it's people you actually know, you probably care a little bit more about what they think than just some random person on the internet. But like, even that made me a little nervous, being like, oh my God, this acquaintance from college is going to know if I like fail this, which in reality, they probably wouldn't have cared or given any second thought. But even that made me a little nervous. But I can only imagine all those people that, personally, plus, a lot of strangers on the internet, like, and like, I did vlog the PCT, but at that point, I was pretty comfortable, not only with my hiking abilities, but also just with like, being public online and that stuff. And so the, posting on YouTube and stuff didn't really bug me too much on the PCT, but if that had been like the beginning of my channel, or like the first thing I had vlogged, really, that would have made me a lot more nervous.
Yeah, it was intense.
How can you talk about it a little bit? Like, I can't even imagine, honestly. Like, it's already so hard to start, especially your first like long distance through hike, and knowing that there's like people. Oh man, I don't even know.
It's horrifying. It's so weird to. I mean, like I said, I started the channel because I needed like another outlet to talk about it, because I wanted to talk about it in details that I had probably already talked to my family and friends and Seth about it in nauseam, and they probably were, at some point going to get tired of me talking about it. So I needed to talk about it somewhere else because I had more to say and I had more in-depth things to say. So it made sense. But yeah, by the time I actually got to trail, or well, I guess I should say before I got to trail, I made, most people are doing daily vlogs of the trail. And I decided to do weekly because I was trying to balance. Thank you.
I actually have a note about this.
Yeah, I was trying specifically, and I'm so glad that I did because it worked how I needed it to. I wanted to balance like vlogging and sharing my experience, but also like having the time and not feeling like I needed to, at a really key moment, or like having an emotional moment on top of a mountain, like pull out my phone and be like, here's how I'm feeling. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to let myself have the emotions and have the time and see the stuff and not feel like my phone, which was my camera, was coming first and I needed to have it everywhere. Like
smart.
Yeah.
So this has been something that's been talked about on the show a lot recently. So many people, when they go for their like first vlog like this, they think that they have to do daily. Not everybody, but a lot of people, and like there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you really want to do. But I do think that a lot of people don't realize how much work it's going to be. And maybe they're just like super hyped on it. And so they just go all in. And obviously it's been done like plenty of times. Like I'm not saying it's not possible, obviously, but it's a lot of work to do daily. And so, yeah, I actually made a note about this. I think it was really smart that you did weekly instead of daily. And like, we can get into the whole algorithm thing. Like it's probably better to do daily in that regard because you're just making more content. But like, it's so important to be able to balance it with the thru hike. And on the PCT, I wasn't even editing my videos on the PCT. I had someone else doing that, and I still didn't want to do daily. I was like, I know it's going to be too much work. And kind of like you just said there, it gives you more flexibility. If you're having a bad day, you really don't have to film that much. And there's something to be said for like, you don't want to just capture the good moments, obviously. Like it's good to have the hard stuff in there too, but it's like, I don't know. I think that was really, really smart of you. And it sounds like it paid off, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the catches, or not catches, but one of the things that happened, the AT being what the AT is, you get a lot of rain. And so anytime I ended up like I Pavlov dogged myself a little bit. And every time it rained, I was like, I should edit videos because we would usually be hiking less, or I'd be in a hostel somewhere.
Yeah.
So I was having a lot of the rainy days came with downtime, and I was like,
makes sense.
Today's the day. It's editing day.
Yeah.
So I'd sit there and do it when it wasn't taking away. There was only a couple times at hostels. Toward the end, I started to get behind with it, as I think probably everybody does.
It's hard, man. It's hard.
And so by the end, there were a couple times where we were sitting in hostels and I had to like leave dinner early because I needed to go upload my dang videos, you know? And so it worked out fine. But yeah, I'm so glad I didn't have more work than I did.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people I think don't realize how difficult. And to be fair, it's like it's not like you can get a good grasp of that until you do it. So it's not like I'm not saying that people that try to do daily are like like stupid or anything like that, obviously, but it's hard. So yeah, that was a good call for sure. So you're going back to like kind of being just nervous for the lack of a better word about having the following, having the people watching you on YouTube. Did some of your nerves regarding that change after like some time on trail? Was that something that you were always kind of thinking about, was like knowing that there's going to be people out there judging you? This is good stuff for people that might want to film the thru hikes in the future, because you got to think about this stuff. And also, was that something you thought about before you started, or did it like hit you once you were actually out there, like, oh shit, like I really got to do it now, and I really got to, in a weird way, kind of answer to some of these people, or give them what they subscribe for, I guess?
Yeah, I think that was a little bit more my mentality, like, oh, there's people watching me, I need to like report to them, sort of a thing, before I hit trail. And then it shifted hard. Once I actually got on trail, very quickly my mindset unintentionally just switched from like, oh, there's all these people watching, I need to be answering to them and give the people what they want and all this stuff. And then it switched hard to like, this is my hike. Gosh darn, Miranda. Like this is mine. I'm gonna do exactly what I need to do. And I I went hard in the direction of, I'm not apologizing. This is how I'm going to do it.
Yeah, good.
I have to say what I'm going to say. And I also relatively quickly in the first couple 100 miles had a internal mentality switch too, that like I mentioned when I started, I was afraid of not liking it and like afraid of ending up needing to quit or finish the trail early. And I also kind of my mindset came around on that too. And I how do I need to word this? I found myself basically okay. I just like found peace is maybe the word to say with like at some point needing to make that decision to come off trail. Because I know that that's the right decision for so many people. There's a huge stigma around quitting the Appalachian Trail. And I don't think it's bad. I think that a lot of people need to make that decision. I think that through hiking the Appalachian Trail isn't the way a lot of people are going to experience the trail to their best.
Yeah.
And so I think I kind of found that, and I found solace in the fact that like, okay, if I get 500 miles in, say, and I'm not having fun, I should go home.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And so I think that my mentality just totally switched. And once I got on trail, I like discovered that within my brain was like, okay, it's going to be fine if I go home. And also it's my hike. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
what the internet thinks. And so thank goodness. Cause if that pressure of like needing to perform for the internet had followed onto trail, it probably would have been a very different vlog.
Yeah.
And I would have had a different experience on trail with that kind of like resting on my shoulders.
Definitely. A little side tangent here. I think you're a good person to have this debate with, and it is going to be a debate, I think, because I've noticed that you pronounce Appalachia a little different than I pronounce it, which is Appalachia. Well, I guess I don't say Appalachia. I usually just say Appalachian. But
you're wrong.
This is it's been talked about before, but I feel like most of my guests recently have said Appalachian, and we finally got someone who says Appalachian. And as people know, my YouTube comments are just ridiculous with this debate. Like it's always like I feel like the people who say Appalachian feel much more strongly about it than the people who say Appalachian. Maybe not, because here I am making a big issue with this, but I don't know. And here's my opinion, and then I'll get yours. I don't think Appalachian is wrong. I don't think Appalachian is wrong. It's just different ways to say the same word. But in my YouTube, I won't put this on you, but in my YouTube comments, people are so insistent that I'm saying it wrong. And I'm like, dude, I'm from Vermont, okay? Like, if I said Appalachian in Vermont, I'd just look like an idiot. Like, and again, it's not to say that people who say that are idiots, but it's just up there. If you're from up there specifically, like, that's just how you say it.
It's entirely regional.
It's regional. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, there's no right or wrong way. Like, the people who say Appalachian are not wrong, and I'm not wrong either. And this is just lights up my comment section. Anytime I have a video get like a decent amount of views where I mention the Appalachian Trail, it's brutal.
It's on the other side too. Because I could say the same thing about Appalachian pronouncers. Because I get the same thing in my comments.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I get the same thing, just the opposite way. And then I also get the handful of people who are like, I follow your channel because you say Appalachian correctly.
People feel
whatever
so
brings
strongly.
you here, John. Like,
people feel so
Yeah.
strongly. So leave a comment, everybody. If you're on YouTube, let me know how you say it, and let me know your thoughts on this ridiculous debate. Because when one of my videos like first blew up, like one of the mystery videos, like around this time last year. I mean, I'd gotten a few comments about this before, but like when it, like one of the videos really took off and a lot of people were seeing it, that's when I really started to get it a lot.
Mhm.
And people were just like, "You're saying it wrong, you fucking idiot," and like all this. And I'm just like, dude, it's just where you're from. That's all it is.
I will say, like, this is just my experience. I don't know what other people
Of
have,
course,
but
yeah.
like, I didn't know that people legitimately said Appalachian until like end of middle school. I legitimately thought that was just how it was pronounced. I just had no idea. And so I'm wondering if like other people who are so up in arms about it, because you're right, there's so many people who care so passionately about a word.
I know, right?
I wonder if they're kind of in the same boat, maybe, where they were raised and like through schooling, like thought that that was just how you pronounced
Yeah.
it. And like now people are saying it weird. Yeah, people care so much. And to be fair, I used to when I thought that there was only one pronunciation. And then I learned that like there's kind of a regional line where you
Yes.
say it differently, and I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also like a lot that I say it Appalachian because it also pegs me as being from this region,
Exactly.
you know, and it's kind of like my home heritage.
No, I get it. And to be fair, I think to people who get kind of up in arms about this, I think a lot of them, maybe not so much on the AT videos specifically, like the vlogs and stuff, but like on some of my mystery videos where like the stories about the AT, but like a lot of the people watching don't really know about thru hiking that much, or you know, they're not like super into it like we are. I think a lot of them, maybe they're from Appalachia, that region, and that's like, you know, where their mind goes when they hear the word, and maybe they're not really thinking about how like the Appalachian Mountains extend up into the north. It's not just in the south, but because like the Appalachian part of the country, the region there, and because that's just where they're from, maybe they almost feel like it's like disrespectful to like say it wrong because like that's like Appalachia, and I don't know. And also Appalachia kind of gets like a lot of hate and stuff. Like people kind of negatively stereotype it a lot, and so maybe they get defensive because of that. I don't know. It's super weird though.
Yeah, it is.
It's funny. Why did you want to vlog the AT? Why, I get why you wanted to hike it, but why did you want to, you know, put yourself out there and make all these videos as well?
Yeah, who knows? I think part of it is that I just like found myself with a lot to say. And then the other part is I had kind of joked. I have a pretty tight-knit group of girlfriends that would always hike, and we're kind of disbanded at the moment because life has taken us different ways. But
Sure.
for over a year, me and a couple of my girlfriends hiked every single weekend without fail. And we joked at one point about making a hiking Instagram, not YouTube, but you know, we were just talking about like, haha, we should make a hiking Instagram and do like trail reviews and stuff like that. And I was like, wait a minute, that's actually kind of a good idea. For as much time as we're spending out here, like it's not even more work. We're already talking about the stuff. We're already like complaining about this aspect of the trail, or like, oh my gosh, all trails was off by this many miles, you know, like we're already talking about these things. So I kind of already had that in the back of my head of like, oh, maybe I'll make an Instagram. And that's where it started. I was just going to put it on Instagram. So I made the Appalachian Adventurista Instagram.
Did you invent that word, adventurista?
Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
I don't know where it came from.
You can take credit for it.
Okay, thank you. Let's trademark it. I think it kind of came from...
Because I had never seen it before. And like as you saw at the start, like I kind of struggled.
Yeah.
Adventurista. I still have to like read it. It's not that it's that hard, but I'm just
well, and that's
stupid,
what everyone
so.
does. Everyone looks at me and goes, Appalachian Adventure.
It just makes you
It's like-
stumble. I think it's a great name. It's very unique. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to say like it's a bad name or anything, of course. But
I liked the alliteration of it. And I think it also
yes,
came
that's good
from...
actually. That's good. I like
yeah.
that.
And it also came from, we went through a phase where we were bringing our cook sets, and like we would hike up to a mountain and we'd sit up there and make coffee. Because we were in the early hiking crowd. We were like aiming to be at the parking lot first, you know, and then we'd hike up. And so we would make coffee a lot at the top, and we talked about being like mountaintop baristas. And I think it came from like in my brain, the word barista and then adventure. And then like they kind of got mashed. I think.
I like it.
I'm still not sure, but yeah.
I like it. It's unique. So you had you hadn't thru hiked, I guess, really before the AT, would you say?
No, not really.
Nothing like super long, but you had like, more experience than a lot of people do that start the trail. I'm sure you met lots of people out there that had never backpacked before.
Another thing that surprised me big time.
It surprised me too. Yeah. And that's not to say that like you absolutely have to, have backpacking experience to go for the AT, but, it sounds like you were probably better prepared than some, we'll say.
Yeah.
But still, kind of actually, you alluded to this earlier in the episode. It's like, you don't really know how it is on a long one like this until you do it. And so I guess, how much had you thought about, I guess you had thought about it, like, whether or not you'd like it, but more, what were some of the expectations you had maybe going into it? And, how did those expectations kind of live up to reality per se?
Man, I had so many expectations, and I tried so hard not to have any.
See, this is what I was the same way, but it's impossible not to have some, or even maybe not even expectations is the right word, but just like things you're anticipating, or even just things you're wondering about, like, oh, maybe it'll be like this. You know, it's hard not to have that stuff before you start.
Yeah.
It's just human nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so some of my expectations, I thought I was going to have actually more alone time than I ended up having on trail. I thought that there was going to be a lot of, mostly at night, like throughout the day, that makes sense. You're hiking solo. Everyone's like ants in a line going the same direction. You just end up kind of between people. But the camping at night thing kind of took me off guard. I thought there was going to be more nights where I was solo at a shelter or something like that.
Was that a pleasant surprise, or were you disappointed in that? Because I know for me, I really don't like camping alone. I'm not afraid to say it. I really don't like it.
I'm fine with it. I went out to trail looking for the social experience. So I think that that's part of the reason I was fine with it. I wasn't looking for like 5 months of solitude.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was, I didn't really care. The only time I cared is when outside of, when you're going kind of like around the edge of Lake Watauga in Tennessee, there's a shelter there's a couple shelters on the AT that are like supposedly haunted. And I didn't know. And I had set up in this shelter and someone came by and said some like real fear-mongery stuff. And not that I am like afraid of ghosts or anything like that, but I just suddenly was like the rest of the night, every noise that happened, I was like, is it happening?
Oh
like,
no.
Have I been wrong my whole life? And
do you remember the name of the shelter? I know it's hard and you see so many.
No. If I could go back through and find it, but no,
it wasn't
I don't
like Vanderbilt, or
yes,
was it? Because I'm pretty sure there was a murder there.
Yeah, a woman died.
Yeah, I don't remember the details of the story, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, there was a murder there or something. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and I had no idea, and I had like called an earlier day because at the time, we can get into this separately, but at the time I was like slowing down my pace to try and catch up with like this old hiking, or try to let this old hiking group I'd hiked with catch up to me. And so I called an early date at Vanderventer, and it had a really nice view of the lake from the back.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and I was set up, and this guy walked by, and was like, "Oh, can't believe you would set up here.
Oh,
don't
come
you know
on,
the
dude.
history and all this sort of stuff?"
Man.
And I was like, "No, I don't."
That's kind of a dick move to say that to somebody.
100%, yeah. And then the rest of the night, I was like, wired.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
But okay, so back to some of the expectations. Like you know, I think that's a pretty valid one. Like it makes sense. Like you're going for a long hike. You don't really anticipate being around people a ton. I mean, maybe more so nowadays. It's definitely not a secret that like the AT is like super social, and obviously you understood that before. But no, that one makes sense to me. What about like if I phrase it a little bit differently? Like what are maybe some things that like you felt like nobody told you before you thru hiked? Some things, yeah. What they don't tell you about through hiking the AT. Gotta get that title in there.
Yeah. I think it's gonna be along the same lines.
Okay.
The big one.
It is kind of similar question.
Yeah, because like, well, my answer is gonna be kind of
That's okay.
That's okay. So there's like people talk about the social side of the Appalachian Trail, and then they talk about the mental side of the Appalachian Trail, and I didn't think about how those were gonna relate. Because I walked out there wanting a social experience, but before I got out there, I knew I wanted a social experience, but I didn't need it to happen. I had kind of set that up in my head. And so I was going to be fine with that. But because I wanted that, a bunch of stuff happened like in the first 200 miles of my trail experience that was socially super stressful. And I almost left trail at one point. And anyway, I ended up finding the group of people that I then continued to hike with. That was a whole lot that I didn't say. We can come back to if you want. But I didn't think about like how intensely the social side impacts the mental side of the trail.
Interesting.
And so, yeah, that was a huge thing that I found for me that kind of surprised me and took me off guard was like, you know, people talk about it. There's drama on trail and stuff like that. And that's one thing. But then also just like, the process of like loneliness, the feelings of loneliness and like how you handle that and cope with that when like the loneliness isn't because you're literally alone. Like I said, I only camped alone a couple times, but just like it's that like feeling alone in a crowd. You know, you're arriving at the shelters every night, meeting maybe a couple people that are the same, but like especially in the first several hundred miles, there's so many people on trail and you're meeting new people every night.
What was your start date?
March 13th.
Okay, so like pretty like popular like time to start the trail. It wasn't like it was an extreme early or extreme late where you might see less people at the start.
Yeah, I was aiming for early bubble, and that's what I got.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned there, I'm gonna paraphrase, but you didn't realize how much the social aspect could affect like the mental aspect. I think was the way you said it.
Yeah.
So I'm here for the drama. As my listeners know, I'm not asking you to like call anybody out or anything like that, but I guess the question is, how did the social aspect impact the mental aspect for you specifically?
Yeah. So I'll just go through that story.
Sure.
Generally. So I started the trail with one of the friends that is in my like little hiking girl bubble at home. I had decided to do the trail and we were on a hike up to Cold Mountain the day that I pegged 2023. And I was, we were talking about it with the girls headed up the mountain. I was like, I think this is the year. I think I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to commit to it. And she was like, I've been thinking about it too. Like, maybe I'll do it too. And I was like, awesome, let's do it. And so like, I ended up starting the trail. We did all the prep stuff. I mean, granted, I did a lot of my own stuff, solo, but we did a bunch of prep stuff together. We were always talking about gear. We were always talking about like what we wanted from the trail, trying to make sure that we were going to be aligned and like how we wanted to hike it and what we were looking for and stuff like that. We really did a bunch of prep to try and protect ourselves from then what happened. And we started the trail together, and within the first, I made it to the first 100 with her, but between the 100 and 200 mile mark, we ended up splitting our hikes. And it was for the best. Definitely glad that happened. She ended up finishing the trail almost a month ahead of me.
Wow.
So like, I'm glad I wasn't going with her to try and finish it. And I'm glad she didn't slow hers down to try and hike with me. Her priorities changed, and the things that we had talked about before trail essentially had changed for her once she got out there. So we needed to split our hikes to make that happen.
Yeah.
That's fine. I get it. But then I had this thought, and I had like started the trail with this expectations that I was going to be hiking with someone. And even if I was solo, even if we like took breaks from each other and like said, I'm tired of your face, I'll see you in like, Irwin or something like that. Like I knew that there was going to be solo time, but I expected it to know it. I expected to kind of know ahead of time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
When that was coming. And suddenly we weren't hiking together. And that was really hard, because suddenly I like had to like reframe my mindset about what I was looking for and how I was on trail while I was alone around a bunch of people, but alone. It was just, I hiked solo for almost 400 miles, basically.
Wow. Which is a lot for AT standards for I think a lot of people. Of course, everyone's different. Some people prefer to go by themselves, but I mean, especially like you said, with the expectation that you're not going to be alone, 400 miles would be a lot, I think.
Yeah. And there was a whole bunch of stuff shifting. There was like a couple, I call them like recurring characters who like I would hike with for a couple days, or not hike with, but we'd end up at camp for a couple days, and then they all just went home. Frankly, is what happened. They would leave the trail, and then I was like, and then that was a whole process to like watch someone come to the decision to leave while I'm deciding to be on the trail, but also like things aren't quite right. It was a weird place to be in. Yeah, it was very strange. And then it was basically 500. The night before I went into Damascus, I camped. There's a shelter right before it. And I stayed there the night before so I could wake up early and have all day in town the next day. And my grandparents were going to come meet me.
Oh, nice.
It was a whole thing. And so at that shelter, though, it was also my first bear sighting on trail. But these people showed up at camp. There were these 4 hikers that I had met. They had been hiking together. They were just kind of like that kind of lucky group that connected on night 2 and then hiked sometimes. The rest of the trail together. Yeah. Super rare, but it happens.
Yeah.
And they all kind of caught up to me. I was sitting there eating dinner, and they all trickled in like one at a time. And I was like, oh my God. And it was like a reunion, because we kept crossing paths with each other. I knew them. They knew me. We'd been at Laughing Heart together. Anyway, it was, And so they all came trickling in, and, and then I forgot. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
A little bit before that, I had this whole like come to Jesus moment on top of the beauty spot of like, I like redeciding to stay out on trail essentially. Cause in Hot Springs, I had a full breakdown and almost went home, which in part was due to the fact that that was my closest place to home. That was the first place that my mom
Makes
and
it tempting,
Seth,
doesn't it?
yeah. That was the first place that they came out to see me, and I had to say bye to them again for the first time.
I could see that being
Well,
really
for the
hard.
second
Yeah.
time.
Especially relatively early on in the trail.
Yeah.
You know, if you're only a week from the end or something, I could see that being a little different. But yeah, early on, especially.
Gosh, yeah. And at the time I didn't think it was early on, but it totally was. Yeah, and that's another thing people don't tell you about the trail. If you've got people coming out to see you, the subsequent times of having to tell them bye get progressively worse because you've already missed them for X amount of time, and then you've got them and you're holding them, and then you have to say bye again.
Oh,
and it sucks so hard, and it gets so much worse. So some people do the cold turkey, like they say bye in Georgia and they don't see you till Maine, and I almost think that that's better in some ways.
yeah, right. Oh,
So-
man. That's something I haven't thought about too much. So you said Seth came and visited a couple times, your boyfriend, and so I've never had like a romantic partner come visit me on trail, so I can't relate to that at all. On the AT, I had my mom and my sister visit me once, but I was already in Connecticut at that point, and you know it's always hard to say goodbye, but it wasn't that hard for me. And again, I think if it had been earlier in the trail, it might have been. And I also wasn't close to home; they weren't close to home, but yeah, that's something I really haven't thought about that much. Like how hard it would be to say goodbye like that in the middle of a thru hike. And I'm someone who doesn't like goodbyes as it is. So like that would be hard for sure.
Yeah, they suck.
And going back to you and your initial hiking partner kind of splitting up, like I applaud you guys for making that decision because and even though it sounds like, of course, it was difficult, but I think that's important if anyone is going to be going into a thru hike with somebody. You know, a lot of time people will say just don't do it, and maybe there's some validity to that piece of advice, but I think it's okay. But I think you should have the expectation, not the expectation, but the understanding that there's a good chance you're going to split up at some point, and don't be like married to the idea of like I have to hike with this person no matter what. You know, have that conversation beforehand, which it sounds like maybe is something that you guys had done.
Yeah, we tried.
You tried. Yeah, I know it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
Like totally fair. But no, I applaud you guys for being willing to like split up like that, as hard as it may have been. And the fact that you guys both still finished too is cool. And again, I don't know all the details behind exactly what went into that decision, which we don't have to get into that if you don't want to. But I don't know. I respect that decision, and I respect the fact that both of you like continued on too, because I feel like a lot of the time too when people split up like that, it might be because one person's going home. So
yeah,
the fact that you guys both finished, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. I'm super proud of her, and she got what she needed out of her hike, and so did I. So yeah, it really worked out. And we're still friends, which was
Okay,
like the
good,
big
yeah.
thing that we needed to like. We had like this, kind of mini eruption happen, and
It's
but
hard.
we needed to
Yeah.
like find a way of coming all the way around, because she, at the end of the day, is also still my friend that I've had for many years that I hike together with at home, and like we hang out and we all go fishing together and stuff like that. So like we needed to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
well,
I
good
think
for
we
you
have.
guys.
Yeah.
If you're cool with it, would you be okay talking about like the post-trail depression thing a little bit?
Yeah.
Because
Let's talk about it.
at the time of this recording, which this will probably be out a few weeks later, so I'm not sure if you have any other videos planned for that, but at the time of this recording, your most recent video, you were talking about that. And so you finished, what was your August finish date?
26th.
And today, it's December 20th that we're recording this. So
Wow.
it's been a few months, but it's still like relatively fresh. And so I really feel like, this is kind of like you're in it right now as far as like post-trail depression goes. And I'm not going to lie, I've said some shit in like videos and on podcasts before where I'm like, oh, like I'm making fun of myself a little bit here, but I basically said like post-trail, I don't really use the term post-trail depression too much, and partially based on my own experience, but post-trail blues is usually kind of how I phrase it. Like there's definitely like an adjustment there for sure. But I don't know, for myself and for a lot of people, I kind of feel like people throw that term around a little bit, and it's like, I know people with actual like depression, and so I just felt bad I'll speak for myself anyways, describing my experiences post-trail depression because it wasn't that bad. But from watching your most recent video, you talked not only about post-trail depression, but about the fact that you've struggled with it a little bit outside of trail as well. And so I felt like you'd be a good person to talk to about this, number one, because you've been so open about it, but also because I don't know, like maybe it's kind of having me rethink like some of the things I've said about it before, like because maybe for some people it is like truly, you know, equivalent or the same thing as like actual depression. See, even then I'm like downplaying it. I'm not trying to do that, but I don't know. I'm fumbling here, but you kind of know what I'm saying there.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's almost made me rethink my stance on this a little bit. So yeah, can you just talk about like what it's been like since you've been home and how you're dealing with it, like how you're doing? And, you know, I think it's a good thing to talk about because it is something that a lot of people deal with, whether it's true depression or even just post-trail blues, which is certainly something that I dealt with and a lot of people deal with. And there's going to be a scale, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you just, I'll shut up. Can you talk about it a little bit?
Yeah. Let's talk about depression. Super cheery. Yeah, this is going to sound ironic. I do love talking about it because it's one of those things that I have struggled with fairly intensely in my past. And so let's friggin' talk about it. People need to talk about it more. So I think that to your point, and maybe to ease you up a little bit, like depression's totally on a scale. Yeah. So like just because you've maybe seen someone have one level of depression and what they are, I mean, what's the phrase? There's a phrase about comparing yourself to people that I've now forgotten. But don't get too lost in the weeds of like comparing like your experience with depression to someone else's experience with depression. It's all individual and it all comes from all of the trauma in our lives and all of the things that come together to make us who we are. There's
probably more to it than just your experience on trail too. It's going to depend on where you're coming back to, or like, you know, what circumstances you're coming back to, you know, your place in life, your experience on trail, certainly part of it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
There's definitely more to it. And I feel like in my mind, I was like doing people that suffer from depression, like a favor by saying that post-trail depression is kind of overblown for the I don't remember exactly how I've said it, but I felt like I was doing them a favor because I was like, I don't want to compare, you know, being sad about being done a hike to actual depression. But yeah, there's more to it than that. Like I can see for some people now that it really could be, you know, a lot more serious than just like, oh, like I miss my tramley or whatever.
Yeah, it's a whole amalgamation of a lot of things.
Amalgamation. I've never heard that word before. I learn new words almost every podcast I do now. This is the best part about interviewing people who are smarter than you. It's great. Highly recommend.
So for my experience, that's all I can speak to.
Yeah, of course.
So I have struggled with depression in my past. So I knew that was something that I was like set up for a little bit more so. It's one of those things that every cold season I'm having to keep at bay. Everybody and their uncle talks about seasonal depression, and that's a very real thing also that happens every year. But yeah, so when I was on trail, I was very aware of the fact that I was having this huge high in my life, and like I mean, what's a bigger word than huge? It just like this insane time of my life that like every single day was this just like endorphin rush.
Yes, definitely.
And I was very aware of that, and I knew that the crash was going to come. And so while I was on trail, I like did my best to set myself up for post-trail life. And I think I talked about it in the video that you referenced, that like I had a couple lists on my phone of like, okay, here's things to focus on when I get back, like goals to have. Here's a separate list of like, if I'm feeling down, if I'm already there, do one of these things, you know, and it's simple things like take a shower, put on real pants, drink water, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I had all these like, I did my best to set myself up with some tools for when I got back, because my expectation also on trail was that I'm going to get home and depression's going to hit. I'm going to get home. The endorphins are going to go away. I'm going to be sad. I'm going to miss trail. I'm going to be overwhelmed with the world. I'm going to miss my family, and it's going to hit. And it's going to suck. And then it'll go, I'll go through the process. And then, by Christmas, I literally thought by Christmas will be good. And I'll have, reached X, Y, and Z goals that I had for myself post trail, and we'll move on. Shit, howdy did that not happen. So I got home. In reality, what happened is I got home and I had like a good 2 months of being like, home is amazing. Like, I didn't even think about hiking.
Oh, wow.
I was so happy to just like have a bed. It took me like 2 months of washing my hands with soap to get over like how wonderful it is to have soap again and not hand sanitizer. Anyway, there were just like all those creature comforts that I had been missing on trail. It took 2 months, roughly, I'm generalizing, for like the shiny effect of those to wear off again, and for those to become normalized. And so I didn't expect that to happen, but like for those 2 months, I was great. I was golden. I was so happy to be home. I didn't care that I wasn't doing anything. Every day I walked out from my room and laid on the couch and was like, I don't have to walk today, and was so happy that that was my reality. And then I think the reason that it hit me as hard as it did is because I didn't expect it to hit, because I got through 2 months and I was like, wow, like I did so good. I set myself up so well. I have grown up so much. Like, maybe I'm over issues with depression. And then it hit.
And you think do you think it hit harder because you had kind of anticipated it wrong?
I don't know if it hit harder, but it like blindsided me. It took me off guard because I didn't know at that point that it was coming. And all of a sudden, like a couple months in, I like didn't know how to be around people, and my brain started backflipping and doing all of the things that it does with depression, and imposter syndrome popped up. I still have a hard time thinking back on the trail, and like I know that I did it because I remember it, but like it can't have been that hard. Like I just like my brain is doing all of these backflips of like, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to even put into words.
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah, it's like all that stuff started late. And so it was really mostly October and November that sucked, and were so hard. And I would like do really good, and I'd be in Asheville and I'd be hanging out with friends and I'd have these social times, and then I'd go home and I like couldn't do anything at home. And there was, so many little things that I had that I wanted to do, and all these goals that I had set up for myself, which was a whole other aspect that like, maybe take this and don't do what I'm saying I did, because I on trail was like, okay, I think I need to get a job, and Seth and I are moving in together, and here's the timeline that I see those happening on, and they didn't happen. And so then I was also disappointed with myself because I thought I was going to have a job and be living with my boyfriend at the time, and I wasn't. And that also added to it. And I was like, I'm not doing anything. How old am I? And this is where I am in the world. And all of those thoughts were like just so overwhelming. And leading me to not be able to like do anything or get off the couch or like motivate myself to do anything that I knew was going to, bring me joy, or like little nuggets of like happiness or just consciousness almost throughout my days. So yeah, it really, it took me super hard off guard. And so I made a video about it because I also, in part, going back to like giving the internet what it wants, I wanted to explain kind of my like 2-month YouTube absence, because I knew I was going to take a break, but I didn't think it was going to be that long.
Yeah.
So in part to like explain, but then also to shed some light. And also, like I said, I love talking about it because I think it's something that needs to get talked about more. I think that it hits everybody a little bit differently. So it's kind of like, gear videos on YouTube, you can watch as many as you want, but like that person's gear is probably not going to work for you. And my experience with depression is not going to be anyone else's.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
like, but just, extra information about kind of what other people deal with, and maybe expectations to not set or other ones to set is helpful. So
yeah, no, definitely. And I
it's been a
appreciate
journey.
you talking about it so openly. And one thing that really is interesting to me. So like when you first started talking about it, a few minutes ago, and you were talking about how you were like expecting it and like, kind of building yourself up to be ready for it. In my mind, I was like, oh, that's a good idea. Like, anticipating hardship is probably going to like help you get through it. But then the fact that it kind of played out differently than you had expected, obviously it caught you off guard, like you said.
Yeah.
And so that makes it harder. And then, so I was like, oh, that actually makes sense. Maybe the anticipating it wasn't as helpful as maybe you would intuitively think.
Right.
And so it's an interesting arc for sure.
Yeah.
And no, I think it's crazy that you're talking about it. Not something that's been talked about a ton on this show, to be honest. And, I think it's good. And thank you. For being so open about it. And I think that you're definitely going to be doing a big favor for people who are going to be hiking in the future, or even people that are off trail this year or post trail this year, much like yourself. So I think it's awesome.
Thanks.
We are getting towards the end here, so we're going to get into a story. But first, before we get into the end of episode story, where can people go watch your YouTube channel and your, plug your stuff? And I'll have it all in the show notes and the description as well.
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram and YouTube, both under the same name, Appalachian Adventurista, and Adventurista is just like adventure with an ISTA at the end.
Yep.
Yeah, I've got a weekly vlog from my Appalachian Trail experience. I have a whole pre-trail series that I did before I walked out, which was primarily me experimenting and trying to make videos. So if you want to see like how I got ready for trail, you can do that. I will have a post-trail series coming.
I was going to ask like what was going to be next on the channel too.
Yeah, I've got a whole post-trail series that I have planned. I've been doing a lot of running, and so I'm probably going to also separately start documenting some of those adventures. I also have a whole separate like Western North Carolina series in mind. So like there's definitely stuff coming. I'm just kind of like, as I come out of, hopefully it's, I'm talking about all this depression and I'm still on the tail end of it. It could be a false up. I don't know, but it's interesting to talk about it while I'm in it. But as I come out of it, I am going to start getting back into the YouTube stuff. And so there's going to be more stuff coming. It's probably going to be a slow trickle at first, and then we'll pick it back up. My aim is to get back to weekly videos, but at the moment we're not there yet.
Yeah, and
so,
there's no rush, obviously. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. But that stuff is coming. I have so many things to say, and I'm trying. One of the big things I try to do with my channel is talk about things that I missed. So things that like, I was looking for, or when I was on trail, felt like people weren't talking about enough, like women's health on the Appalachian Trail and stuff like that. There's going to be. That's what I'm going to try and focus on.
Okay, interesting, yeah.
I try to stay away from classic, like, sorry to say this to you, but the classic, like, 5 things people don't tell you on the Appalachian Trail.
You're smart for that, yeah. And I appreciate that. I like people who are doing unique stuff, and like, maybe I'll have to get you back on at some point, because women's health, whatever, related to trail has never been talked about on this show. I mean, obviously, like, I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, how was your last period?
Exactly, and like, maybe that'd be something that'll be a cringe episode on my part for sure. Like, I'll be terrible in it, and people will. It would be funny on my part, but also like it's important stuff to talk about. Yeah, so
sure.
But anyway, sorry, I cut you off there.
Oh, you're all good. I think that was the end of what I was saying. There's more stuff coming. I got lots of plans.
Awesome.
Follow my stuff.
Yeah, everyone go subscribe to her channel and the Instagram and all that stuff. All right, story time. What do you got?
Yeah, so I had to clear this with you because I didn't know what you wanted on your channel, but and I'm not going to call anybody out by name either on trail, but there was this year on the Appalachian Trail someone who was writing about trail, not for the trek.
I was going to ask you.
And she was doing basically smut. And for those who don't know, that is just light porn about her experiences, her sexual experiences on the Appalachian Trail, and calling people out by name, which was probably the part that made it the most interesting because we knew the people.
Oh my God.
And there were a couple people who were like recurring characters in her stories, and intentionally. Everyone knew this was happening. There was kind of a running joke that my buddy Jukebox at one point was like, I passed her on trail today and I didn't even make eye contact because I didn't want her to write about it. You know, like,
my God.
It was kind of a joke.
Wait, so she was like making shit up about these people that she would meet on trail, or it was real experiences?
It's real experiences. She probably was embellishing in some way. I don't know. I wasn't there, but you know, she's probably embellishing in some way. But there were at least 2 recurring characters who knew that who wanted to be in her stories.
Okay, interesting.
And like I don't know, that was their goal. And so there was, I think we were in Vermont. I'm pretty sure we were in Vermont, and we were at this shelter and we had this really beautiful view. I remember it being one of those shelters that like from the front, you've got a view of the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And it was gorgeous. And we were all tired and excited to be we might've been going to New Hampshire the next day even. Anyway, and someone found it. We were talking about her and her stories and we were like, can we find it? And so someone found it on their phone and found the place where you can read her stories, which are free. And we were joking about like, you know, everyone was asking like, what does it say? What does it say? And the person whose phone it was like, I'm not reading this out loud.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I will. And so I grabbed their phone and we were literally all sitting around. We had filled the picnic table and there was a couple of people on the edge of the shelter. And we were all eating dinner and it was like story time with dinner, reading this smut out loud in the shelter with one of the people who's like a recurring character in it. And I'm reading it out loud and he walked around the corner we were like, everybody just melted immediately. Like food bags got dropped, spoons went everywhere. Everyone was like,
just frozen.
And I mean, yeah, we lost it. I immediately locked the phone. I think I got lucky that I hadn't said the person's name.
Oh yeah.
In a minute, you know, I was like, it hadn't come up. And so I hadn't just said, and then so-and-so did this, you know, I just kind of got lucky with the timing of the story, but that was insane. He walked around the corner and was like, what? And I think it was Moose that was like, oh, just perfect timing.
Oh, so you did tell him?
No.
Oh, okay.
That's all that got said.
Okay.
We just like, he like brushed it off and was like, oh, it was just
a funny moment. Maybe he'll find out about it now. We'll see.
Maybe.
We'll see.
It's okay. Anyway, it really was perfect time. It was insane. It was such a wild moment. I don't know. I had so many things I could have talked about.
Know.
And I asked Seth last night, I was like, what's something off the wall that I have told you?
That's a unique one for the show, for sure.
Yeah. So
I'd never
Smut on
heard
the
of this
Appalachian
before.
Trail. Story time at dinner.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Allie. Thank you for coming on here, especially so early. And we'll have to do another one at some point. I'm sure I'll be in the area. So
come on back.
Thank you. Thank you for being so open, and that was awesome.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Hell yeah. And thank you. That's right. You. I'm pointing at you for watching, or if you're listening, I'm still pointing at you. You just can't see me. Thank you for tuning in, and please subscribe if you haven't done so already. We're trying to get to 10K on the Trail Tales YouTube channel, and please leave a 5-star review. We're trying to get to 1,000 5-star reviews on Apple and on Spotify. And we got a ways to go. So yeah, thank you so much, everybody, and I'll see you next week.